Well, it was an eventful week for the Tennessee Volunteers, and unfortunately, the recent news has not been good for Josh Heupel and his football team. Hey, Lucas Panzica here from 104.5 The Zone and A to Z Sports. A lot to get to from the last week or so let's dive right in with the most significant piece of news from the last 7 days, and that is that Tennessee cornerback Ricky Gibson plans to enter the transfer portal in the upcoming spring window. Gibson communicated this to On3 Sports, who then reported it, and it's a tough spot for Tennessee to be in, as Jermod McCoy, the Vols star corner, likely will miss the start of the 2025 season as he starts a long recovery process from a torn ACL that he suffered just a few weeks ago. Tennessee thought it would have one of the best cornerback duos in the country, let alone the SEC in 2025, with McCoy on one side and Gibson on the other. Both players who played excellent football for the Vols in the 2024 season. That is now much more uncertain than it was before, with McCoy's availability and Gibson planning to enter the portal. And such is the state of college football in this current era. Multiple transfer portal windows, multiple opportunities for players to exercise leverage against their respective programs who need to pony up to keep those players on campus. So we'll see if Tennessee is able to come up with a strategy to keep Ricky Gibson in Knoxville. That portal window does not open until the conclusion of spring practice. So the Vols have a few weeks to try and sort this out, but one position of strength becomes a position of uncertainty, with both McCoy and Gibson statuses up in the air for next season for two different reasons. Now, the second piece of news that we're going to talk about here is another position that will need a lot of retooling in 2025, and that is the interior of the offensive line, as Tennessee left guard Andre Carrick had his waiver denied by the NCAA for another year of eligibility. Carrick played in only 5 games in 2023 before starting nearly every game in 2024. The NCAA will not grant him a red shirt for that 2023 season, and he will move on to look for opportunities at the professional level. This leaves Tennessee with a complete remake of the interior of its offensive line, with Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins also off to the NFL. In fact, the Vols only retain one starter on the O-line, and that is left tackle Lance Hurd, the LSU transfer. Now, Tennessee has addressed this position in the portal, bringing in Wendell Moe from Arizona and Sam Pendleton, the transfer from Notre Dame. So we'll see how the Vols can balance some competition between the newcomers and some of the recruited faces already on campus to replace some of those players. But that's a lot of turnover, and the Vols had a chance there to be able to have some continuity on the interior of the O-line. That will not be the case for Carrick, whose waiver was denied. And the third piece of bad news for Tennessee football in the last week is that the home-and-home series with Nebraska, scheduled for 2026 and 2027, has been canceled. This was initially reported by Pete Thamel of ESPN, and the discussion from Thamel, and then confirmed by Tennessee AD Danny White, is that this was a move prompted by Nebraska, who apparently wants an extra home game in 2027, which was the game between Tennessee and Nebraska scheduled to be played in Knoxville, because the Cornhuskers are undergoing stadium renovations and will have reduced capacity, so they want 8 home games in 2027. That is at least the reason that they cited. And then just a couple weeks later, a couple days ago, in fact, Nebraska head coach Matt Rule came out wondering why teams would ever schedule difficult non-conference opponents when the 9-game Big Ten schedule will be tough enough, and that could put them in a disadvantageous spot to make the college football playoff. And now we know the real reason why Nebraska did not want to play Tennessee in 2026 and 2027. Now, this puts the Vols in a tough spot. This is short notice. These schedules are sorted out years in advance, and this is 2025 that we're figuring this out. So Tennessee has to find a replacement for that game. The Vols may have to pony up money for a smaller school to come to Knoxville to fill those games after trying to create a home-and-home with a Big Ten program. It certainly puts Danny White in a tough spot, and he said as much, or indicated as much, on social media. So not a great week for the University of Tennessee's football program, but there is a long offseason ahead, and spring football is just around the corner. There is still a lot to be excited about for the fan base, but also a lot of work to do with the program itself.